Hi, I'm Stephen O'Gunther, and I'm going to be talking to you today about career transitions, career coaching, and career decision coaching. So in life, there's different junctions where people want to choose a new career. Firstly, I guess when people are young, there's the question of are they going to follow their parents' choices or not? And sometimes young people will start a career, start a university course, and then find that that's really not what they want to do, but they're not quite sure which direction is the right one for them. Certainly the transition out of high school usually requires a decision about what direction you're going to go, and it's certainly better than wasting a few years at uni like that to be able, in fact, to have a clearer idea. So certainly young people need to be able to decide on a career direction. There is also a kind of natural evolution that sometimes happens for people where they get tired of the work that they're doing or lose interest and they want to move in a new direction. There's also a point in people's life where they come to some sort of existential crisis, some sort of crossroads, both personally and professionally. Certainly women, when they emerge from childbearing years, and sometimes men stay at home and take care of the children. So when those children get older, then there's a transition as well where the parent needs to decide about what kind of career direction they're going to head. Of course, getting laid off and losing your job also, sometimes people just want to get employment in the same direction as they've been headed, but often that's a time when people review and consider whether they want to keep doing what they've been doing or do something different. Sometimes people take what are called soft or low-risk explorations while they've got a job. They try out other things because they're looking for a different direction, but they don't want to just leap off. So those kind of people also need support. Sometimes people get very bored with their jobs or their careers. They might have been in it for a long time, or they find after a few years it's just not the thing that excites them, and then they're looking for a new direction. Sometimes people have specific traumatic experiences in a job or in a career, or they just get burnt out after a while, working too hard, being pushed too hard, and they can no longer keep doing that kind of work. They really need to find something else. Other people want to see change. They want a lifestyle change. They want to have more time with the family or find a better work-life balance. That might be within the same career field, or it might also be finding a new avenue which allows them to do that. Some people also want to make the move between a job and becoming entrepreneurial, starting their own business, having more autonomy, taking more risks. So all these types of situations lead to the need for support for making a career decision. So how do people decide on this? Well, one way is the expert model. You go to a vocational guidance counsellor, and it's a person in authority who has knowledge, and they do some kind of assessments on you, which are often the core of the career coaching process. And according to those assessments, which might include, for instance, the Holland or Strong Inventory or MBTI personality profile, then that expert will make recommendations as to what they think is the best fit. The trouble with those assessments is that often they take quite a bit of time, more than 100 questions, and they do provide kind of broad options, but they still don't really tell you exactly what it is that you want to do. And it also presumes that the person is sort of determined by their profile, whereas in our career decision coaching process, we're very much oriented around the individual and really getting to know them and finding out who they are rather than fitting them into preset categories. Sometimes people use brainstorming processes, and Barbara Scher's Ideas Party are a good example of this. You get together with a bunch of people and you say, these are the things I'm interested in, and people come up with creative ideas, and that can be really useful. And in fact, part of the career decision coaching process involves a creative brainstorming element. Sometimes people just experiment, trial and error in life opportunities, so-called happenstance, And sometimes this works for people and sometimes it doesn't. They may find something that really gels with their interests, but it's often a bit more passive, circumstantial. You get offered a particular set of possibilities, but it doesn't really necessarily gel with who the person is. Another approach to career coaching and career transitions is the question of what does the market want, which is all about, what jobs are available, what fields are looking for workers. And certainly that's good security-wise, and you can be pretty sure after a degree or qualification in that area, you're likely to get a job. But it doesn't necessarily, again, fit the individual and who they are. Same thing with service activities, things that are good for the world, which certainly can bring a lot of sense of kind of reward for people, but may or may not make them much money. And again, it might not really be about that person. So also people look at occupational categories. They look at, lists of degrees or job clusters. And it's a useful way, certainly, of thinking about career and selecting a career, because if you look and drill down, then you probably will find something that seems interesting to you. But these long lists, I think, are not really the best way to go about making a career decision. So the system that I've devised, career decision coaching, what is it and how does it work? Well, it's not based on the expert model because it's really the client that makes their decision. It's not based solely on what the market wants or just on personality profiles. The core of it is based on what people really enjoy doing, what they're really fascinated by. Not necessarily what they're good at. That's an important distinction. You can really love a topic like horse riding or something and perhaps not be that good at it, but it's still kind of a passion of yours. So that's what we're interested in. And we use Richard Bowles' 3 skills model to really closely identify what are the things that you love doing, what are the things you're really interested in. So the things you love doing are the actions, the so-called transferable skills, the ing words, designing, exploring, adventuring, whatever that is. So those types of skills can be taken from one circumstance to another, very useful. The second type of skill is called special knowledges, which is the kind of expertise, the things you really know something about, very much content knowledge. So I'm an Apple person, I know lots about Macintosh computers, but I'm not very expert in PCs. So that's very specialized kind of knowledge. You can't really take it with you much. But it does relate to the things that interest you. And the third type of skill is the self-management skills, which are personal qualities like leadership or courage, these type of things. People don't normally think of them as skills, but they're like a kind of personal skill that describe your capacity to do things. So these are the things that we're interested in, and that's the basis that we use primarily for helping people make a career choice. Assessment instruments are definitely useful, but they're not really very predictive actually, and they have this profiling capacity, but they don't really drill down to the individual. I think that's what's lacking. They put people in broad categories. Really what we're interested in is, what kind of person are you? What sort of settings and activities really suit you? So as part of building up a comprehensive profile, some of those assessments can be useful, though I use them in a much more simplified form. That ask people 6 questions rather than 100. The point is helping people understand themselves better and applying that insight into a career choice. So with these assessments, as I say, we do the quick straw assessments, an impressionistic one rather than attempting some kind of scientific perfect accuracy. Generally, people lack confidence in their choice-making capacity, and especially big life decisions such as a career. People have resistance, they have self-doubt. So what we do in the career decision process is we build up a kind of momentum, clarifying who you are, what are the things you like doing, what are your skills, what are your aptitudes, what are your dreams, what are your aspirations, what kind of values do you have, what's important to you, what kind of experiences are particularly meaningful. And so building up this picture requires a narrowing and a focusing process, because you kind of can't have it all. If you give people a list of values, they'll tick off like 20, but it doesn't really mean much. You need to kind of narrow that down. So this process that I've designed uses a lot of choices. People are constantly having to make choices, and although they'd like it all, they can only have a few things. What are the most important values to you? So this narrowing, focusing process assists people to arrive at a decision. So the process, as I've described it and developed it, takes quite a long time, takes 4.5 or even possibly 5 hours. So it's not a shortcut system. And it's not an unaccompanied system. It's not something where you give something to someone and you walk away. Because although you might get some of the same information possibly, it's in the interaction, it's in the sitting down with the person that you get to know them. That's what's important. So we could say it's a relational connection. And the fact is, people avoid like crazy. They just, they might want to find their career, they might want to make a decision, but they have all sorts of ways to distract themselves. So sitting down with a person with no other distractions, their phone's off, there's nowhere else they can go, you just take them through the process. That is what I find leads to success. So for instance, Richard Nelson Bowles has some great books, What Color Is Your Parachute, that actually take people through some of these kind of steps. I've taken a lot from him. But I find that most people will only get part of the way through and they'll abandon the process. They won't spend, 3 days going through all the steps themselves. So doing it with someone creates a kind of pressure, which is very useful and burns through people's resistance. Do they arrive at the perfect decision? Well, maybe not. But the point is that it's one that they make for themselves, and that's why we can guarantee an outcome. If for some reason it's not quite perfect, we actually have this narrowing process where there's a number of choices and then they finally make these ultimate choices. And so if it becomes clear afterwards for them that that one wasn't quite right, they've got like 2 or 3 other possibilities in our system where they can go, oh, it's probably more like that. So, if we don't get exactly to the mark, we get very close. The whole process is 100% transparent. That's why it's not really expert-based. The client can see exactly how we arrive at the outcome. There's a record of each step we took, and they can go back through it themselves. In fact, it's very useful because it gives them a template in the future, because people do tend to change careers 5 or 6 times in a lifetime. If they want to do this themselves at some future to select another career, it helps them step through that themselves. They don't necessarily need help with that. So we're looking at a conjunction of what you love doing, what the world needs, what's of service, what can make you money. All these things coalesce into a final career picture. And that's the process of career transition, and that's the specific career decision coaching system that I've devised.